Okay, so I have been looking at the Visconti and the Pineider sort of portable inkwells that you can use to fill your pens, and they have a little kind of gasket sort of thing that you plug your pen into, tighten it up around it, or whatever, sort of to create a seal, and then you can flip your pen over. And I have been thinking about that, and thinking about also lately ink samples, because I've got a bunch from Goulet pens. I think they're all pretty much from them, or from a couple of kind of pay it forward pen and ink exchanges from the Fountain Pen Network. And I have a bunch of pens that I can't ever quite get to fill properly. And as much as it's difficult, it's not really, it's not that easy. I think I still got a little blue around the old fingers and cuticles there. It was a lot worse a couple days ago, because I tried to fill this with Organics Studio Alanine. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I ended up doing the trick where you sort of get a syringe and like put a tiny drop or two around the feed and turn it a little bit, and then put another drop or two around the feed and turn it. And it just got all over my hands, and it kind of worked. I mean, I did get the thing like halfway full, and I've used most of it since. But it was such a mess, and it was so crazy. So I went to the hardware store, I went to Lowe's, and I bought a bunch of different kinds of washers and gaskets that are rubber. And then these two I found are perfect. You need two different ones for different sizes of pens, and they certainly won't do all the pens that there are. If it's like a huge pen, it's not going to fit in here, but a pretty wide range of pens I think would work really well. So this one up here is a sort of, they're both 5/8 outer diameter, so they're both 5/8 around, but then the inner diameter on this one is a little bit bigger than this one, and so I got both. They came in packs of 2, like $1.50 at most, $1 something, but they work really nicely. Boom, boom, boom. So you just kind of have to put one edge in, kind of pop it in there, and then ta-da, there you go. So it goes right in there. There's a bit of a gap. You can kind of see, there you go. So the bottom half fits in there nicely, and then the top half kind of lip is there, but then because there's this little bit of sort of space in the middle, it gives it a good bit of stretch, and so there's just a little bit of give since it fits just about perfectly in there, and so you can just kind of wedge a fountain pen in there. And I actually ended up using these to test them. So this is the slightly bigger size, and it works on the pens to the left. Slightly smaller size works on the pens to the right. And if you do the pens on the right with a bigger size hole, it technically looks like it could work, but they end up getting pushed a little bit too far up in there, I think, probably. And so that's not ideal. Probably wouldn't fill as well, since the filler hole would be up higher above where the ink would be eventually. So I am just going to do what you normally get from Goulet, and I guess most places is 2 millimeters, right? So we'll do that. So that's all the ink you're gonna get usually, I think. That's about right. And I got this guy on here, and so we'll start with the Ahab, because that seems to be a really popular one from them. So ta-da, unscrew, boom. And then I am just going to kind of wiggle it in there a little bit. And then when you turn it up, like so, it's not really leaking. For the larger size pens, especially the ones that have like kind of a bit of a lip or a rise around the end of the section, I would probably say you might want to hold it sort of like this, so you're kind of holding it in place. There's a couple I definitely have to. The Jinhao 750, I actually got that also from the Pay It Forward. But check this out. You just kind of, and ta-da! I took the whole 2, almost the entire 2, and I could probably get all of it. But anyway, and then you can kind of see, I hope you can kind of tell, but there's no moisture, no leakage there. Pop that out. Ta-da! So make yourself a little portable inkwell by just buying a couple of those. And there you go. Pop that back in there. Set that guy aside. Let's see if it did most or almost. Yeah, actually that's about right. 2 milliliters exactly. So pretty much got all of it out. But works well with that. I will point out, yeah, like the Jinhao, if you're using these kinds of things, I know that they also have been selling them there for a while. So with these, already extended, it is the little silver thing will go in, but it wants to pop out. So I'm not touching it, just kind of wants to back out. Do that, bloop. But if you do, just kind of hold it in place. I'm not using a ton of pressure, but I'm using a little pressure. Again. There we go. Not leaking. And then twist, 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 twist. And it's funny, the first time I was doing this for myself, I didn't get any air bubbles. I was really impressed. Every time it was like a completely full, there we go. Yeah, completely full fill. And then let it just pop right out. The biggest thing was that like this one, the larger size hole is absolutely necessary because you can't get a number 6 nib into the smaller size ones. They just won't quite fit through. I did like pop this one through when I had it on there for the smaller one, but then trying to pop it out, I actually just pulled the nib right out. So there's that. But works really well, actually. And so that's great for that. And then, like I said, just to point out on the smaller size, the difference, if I do take, let's say, like a nib creeper here, and stick it in there, it'll go, you know, way up in there. So the whole section, half of the section's up in there. On the big size here like that. The Lamy Safari kind of technically works in both. You can get a little bit more of it up into this one. But on the other one, it'll pop up just past this lip here, and it does form a pretty good seal. So let's see if I can show you that real quick. Make sure to fill that back up to the 2. And, okay, so let's try it with the Lamy. Just to, oh wait, actually I gotta put the actual thing in, I forgot. All right, so slightly smaller size guy here, comparatively. Not a huge difference, but it's enough for sure. And let's just boop, pop this in. There we go. And then yeah, so take the Lamy here, and it does just kind of pop right in there like that. And then just to show you how well that works. Not leaking at all. So that's nice. Boop. And then I had a couple of those. I've got an old Schaefer touchdown, and this one worked really nicely in there. Just kind of pops the whole, getting the whole nib in there, which is nice. The whole nib in, most importantly, the part that you need for the feed. No leak in there. The one thing I did figure out is, and I don't know how many people use them, but I have a bunch of these Hero 616s, and they're, yeah, it's, just a super cheap. Like I got 3 of them for like $4 or something like that a long time ago. But they're really great, weirdly, because they have been, I just never have issues with them, which is so funny. They write really, consistently and work well, but the deal is that they do kind of come all the way apart, and so you can, you can take this off, you can unscrew this here, and then from this point you can actually hold the section and you can unscrew this part here. And so, yeah, it comes right off like that. But the problem is that whenever I was doing it, I'm just going to screw it back on because it doesn't matter at this point. Whenever I was filling it, this is the only one that had an issue. But with this one, it fits very nicely. And then, you turn it over. And you can fill it by just giving it a little squeeze here on the aerometric filler. Boom. Watch the water just go down. Fill it all the way up like that. But when I was doing it originally, while I was doing that, as I would start to fill the sack up, I would notice drips of water kind of leaking out right around the edge here, where the there's like a really thin kind of window for you, an ink window. But I was noticing the little bubbling bits coming out right there, and I realized it's because inside, if you unscrew this thing, there's just like space essentially. So this just screws on over what is essentially like a long feed with a little skinny nib at the top. But since it's just an open hole at the top, so water was getting down and just sort of filling this whole thing up. So the only thing I had to do was I unscrewed the top part, put a tiny bit of silicone grease just around the threads just underneath here, and then screwed it back on. And then ever since then now it's working great. So that is perfect. So if you were going to use ink, it would make a bigger difference. Water, who cares? But if it was ink just bubbling out around the thing and getting all over everything, that would matter more. So I went ahead and took the other 616s I've got, and I went ahead and just put a little bit of grease in there. And so now whenever I choose to finally actually use them for that, they should be good to go, I think. But yeah, so all of these pens worked really well in that one. On the right, so smaller size over here, larger size over here. If you bought the two different gaskets, you'd get, 2 of each one for, I want to say like, I don't know, $4 maybe at the most, less than that probably, with tags maybe. Yeah, does a really good job, filling all your ink. So I watched a bunch of videos on what they do, and they recommend, using the syringe. They recommend using, doing the tilting method and just all these different kinds of things. And all of those work okay, but even then, with tilting, etc., there's just so many that I haven't figured out. The one I don't have is I didn't find one of these that would fit in here that was small enough to work with my vanishing point. I've got a little Decimo, and it is... But with that one, I actually don't use the converter because the converter is garbage. And so I actually just refill a cartridge from an old Pilot Parallel and use an ink syringe. So that worked well. So I don't need this for that. But but yeah, so, and obviously anything huge. I do have a Jinhao 159 that I tried, and it is too big for either of these. So it's definitely possible to get too big. But if you're using a small to medium-sized pen, I think you do really well with either of these. Should be fine. Really small pens maybe wouldn't work in this one. But these are the two they had at Lowe's, and I just found them in the kind of section with all the screws, nuts, bolts. There was one that said specialty washers, I think, and that is where that was. There was also a bunch of big, like, kind of round, flat, thinner rubber washers that were actual washers in there with them, and then a few different gaskets. So, yeah, give it a shot. But the most important thing is you want the 5/8 OD outer diameter there. That's what's going to fit into the top of the cap really nicely. And then if you could find a company or manufacturer that makes even more variety of sizes for the inner diameter, I think that you'd be able to pretty much rock almost whatever you want within reason. If it'll fit in the in the mouth of this thing without the gasket, then you can probably find something that would work. Anyway, so I thought that was great, and I am going to really enjoy filling all my pens. I've got a ton of ink samples, and the biggest thing that holds me back from using them all the time is that it's a bit of a pain in the butt, so I just kind of do them when I really want to. Otherwise, I use them more for art and decoration and things like that than I do for actually filling pens. So ta-da, there you go. Hope that helps. I was super excited about it.